Hi, I'm Michael Gottlieb. I am a Chax author, and I'm so happy that Charles Alexander has invited me to put up some content onto the Chax channel. I want to thank Charles and David Weiss for the logistical work in making this happen. What I'd like to read from first is this Chax book. It's called What We Do, Essays for Poets. And I'm particularly happy to read from it because I find myself asking questions these days like I think we all do as poets. What should I be doing? What am I doing? What does it mean to be a poet these days? And those are the kinds of questions that I've tried to work on, not answer for sure, but address for a long time. People know, anyone who knows my work knows that's a set of questions that have been possessed by for years. And this book of essays is all about questions like that. This section I'm going to read now is from an essay called Jobs of the Poets, the first essay in this book. When it comes to discharging our responsibilities, in the first instance, those writing-related ones, whatever we decide they are, or indeed in the second, when it comes to the ones that don't seem to have anything to do with our writing, whichever among those we decide to recognize or accept, if any, as difficult as it can seem to carry on shouldering them, or some of them, or any of them, during the best of times, or during times which we can look back at later and deem to be uneventful. That is to say, no matter how difficult it can seem to carry on simply in the face of everyday conditions one seems obliged to accept. What happens when something really terrible happens? When some event, however defined, befalls one, what then? The kind of everyday horror or tragedy that we must admit is part and parcel, eventually, of everybody's life. People get sick. People die. They die before they're supposed to. People fall in front of the number 3 train. Terrible things happen. Does being a poet help one to carry on when caught in the meshes of the other? Does exhibiting what we presume to be uncompromising honesty, along with the requirement to see what stands before us in all its detail or horror without any illusion whatsoever, in other words, those vital aspects of what we think of as our job description as poets, does any of this stand us in good stead, armor us at all in times of need? Can it? Or do we fall apart just as easily? Is our ability to cope or not with loss or tragedy or the like, if cope is the right word? Is it based on certain qualities or facilities that are entirely independent of whatever skills or qualities we have or have developed that have made us the poets or artists that we like to think we are? Nevertheless, might it not be that those accelerating tempos of threat, those shaking echoes of loss, those vertiginous gusts of terror and false respite, no matter how temporary, that are so often the orchestration of crisis and disaster, like a terminal illness perhaps, which we can see, which we cannot help but see, all follow a particular, perhaps choreographed structure, an outline, some sort of intrinsic teleology that somehow, since after all, it is no small part of our role to see pattern everywhere, no matter how fugitive, whether on the page or in a ward at Bellevue, perhaps makes that very inability on our part to surmount or navigate those horrors with any more success or equanimity or aplomb or whatever than any other group or type, all the sadder, pathetic, tragic, that it makes it even clearer how much like and no better we are than any other group of humanity under the sun. And by the same token, does what we do, what we make, does any of that help those who read our poems? Can we help? Do we make a difference? Are we useful? Must we not tell ourselves that it is so? And is it not? This is the second section of the two that I'll read from this book. This is section 24 from the same essay, Drops of the Poets. But we do know, we feel it in our bones, that creating, that being a maker is in fact the highest form of living. We just know it. That is why we know that we are most alive, most human, perhaps the only time we are fully alive, when we are engaged in this work. And at the same time, we must remind ourselves that we are no better in any way than the next man, the next woman. That the utility of our role is no more central to our species than any other. Yet, we know that what we do is so important that the world depends on us, even though it thinks it can ignore us. But no definition of humanity can be deemed complete without us. Doesn't matter if no one reads us right now, except us. That book came out 3.5 years ago, and I'd like to read now from this new book, which Roof Books just came out a few months ago, a book of poems and an essay. And like all my essays and memoirs and criticism and poetry, principal focus is us. how we live our lives as poets. I'm going to read three poems, two short ones, an unpublished one, a longer one from this book. These are sections of one long poem with 5 poems. This is section 39. The unexamined life, upon further examination, was looking better and better. One door down from defeat for both mailing and shipping our address for so long. But then one day, glazed with rain, trailed by some fowl of some sort, the movers arrived with their great red wheelbarrow. And this is 37. Of a morning, now that you mention it, what possibly could fall out of this clear blue sky? A Dagwood sandwich, a not unwelcome anvil, a bank error in your favor, a burnished apple, a long-lost friend, almost anything. In the last section that I'm going to read is number 48, and it's one that has a title, which is Where the Poets Take the Waters. This book was written in 2017, and as I indicated, an essay that accompanies the book, the poem. It was occasioned by John Ashbery's death in a lot of ways, and as I worked on it, an increasing focus was how in this time 2 years ago, when it seemed like things couldn't possibly get worse and then proceeded to get worse every day, reading him instilled in me this sense of optimism, which I tried to invest in this book. And at that time, it did not seem like things could even ever possibly get worse than they were then. But here we are, in April of 2020. And optimism does not seem to be something that is readily available these days. But what I do feel stronger than ever, as strong as ever, is belief and faith in what we do. How important it is for us to do what we are doing now. I would never dream of telling anyone what they should be doing now, telling another poet what you should be doing in a time like this, at any time. The right thing to do may just be looking out the window. But I do believe what we do is so important. It is never, could never, will never be more important than what we do right now. Where the poets take the waters, asking nicely for a fight. blasé settee, the doofus stand-in, the equivalent of a mere needle stick, the dry goods. I can't imagine anywhere I'd rather be tonight. What we all naturally have a hankering for, such blithe assurance. Your ride and your staff, they comfort me, without apparent volition. They ring down from the lookout, the sally gate, the happy accident, the cracking mask of resolve. What is laid on with a trowel among the plantings, the towering folly, all the things you don't need to be ashamed of anymore, standing at what we assumed was a safe distance, surveying the so-called love nest. It was finally clear to intelligence even as mean as ours of a piece, price unconscious, drawn easily on this topic, what inevitably takes a lifetime to master, what is our highest calling, an untenanted allotment to which we bring our joint and several fortunes, a current coursing through the crowd, a caravanserai for our hopes, a victory at sea. Everyone has the goods on us. In the lighting district, the gift district, the notions district, where we learn free verse isn't free, doing business in the beating heart of the city, under our own buttonwood tree. This is our practice, the pitch where we fetch up, making our markets. Thanks.